please be seated. We can get underway with the assembly. So just remember last week we tried a new way of stacking the chairs at the end of assembly, and we'll work with that method again this afternoon. Thank you.
I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay my respects to the elders both past and present. The traditional owners of the land upon which we meet are the Coombabary from the Yugambeh Nation. Please would you stand for the school prayer. Almighty God, please be seated.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's been wonderful how smooth this term has been and how wonderful the reports about everyone in class has been so far this term. Really, it's been a great compliment to you. My sincere congratulations. Can I welcome to this assembly some guests who are obviously going to assist us with the handing out of the trophies for swimming in a moment. Mr. and Mrs. Barry, Mrs. Lerm, also Mrs. Green, Mrs. Louise Bernays and Mrs. Rosalind Crimmer. Also old girls from last year, Amy McIntyre and Maddie Branch. It's wonderful to have you here. So thank you for being here. A bit of a sense of deja vu, I guess, girls, of being back here. Gosh, it's still happening, is it? It is. Okay. My comments to you today really arise out of, I guess it's what time of term is it? Right at this stage of the term, I'm hoping that you are over the early moments of settling in and you're into the, I guess the harder set of the term is about to start. A bit more work is happening. And I think at this stage of a term, it's always really interesting for you to ponder the mental attitude that you're taking towards the term. And by the mental attitude, I'm really thinking about the way you think about yourself, as well as the way you think about the world around you. Now, this first clip in some ways that I'm going to show you is one that I think I want you to sit there and think, look at the people who are being tricked. Look at the people who are being tricked and just wonder, how could they possibly be tricked? It'll make a bit of sense when you see it, but do ask yourself the question, how could that possibly be? And I'll say some words after this clip about it, but I want you to think, how could they possibly be tricked in this? I think the clip explains itself. Well, I hope you understood what happened there. They were suggesting there was a time machine in operation that had gone back to 1860. Now, I don't know. Could that possibly work? Could you actually find that many dumb people to trick and make you think you had gone back to 1860? The laws of physics just aren't that malleable, really, and the world isn't, surely. But, you look at those faces on those people and they look awfully surprised and confused. And it just worries me no end that people could be. All of those people must have gone through a good education. They must have gone through so much. And yet, I think a gentler example of exactly that same thing is gossip. When you think of some of the things people are inclined to believe when gossip actually happens. I came across one earlier this week, and I have to say I needed to sit down. And when people were telling me what they thought was going to happen, well, I thought, well, what would possibly make people think we do that? Gossip is often like that. But the odd thing about gossip is that if you're really, really good at it, you can be made more intelligent as a result of it. I listened to a person on one occasion, not quite gossip, but they were what we call a futurist, a person who predicts the future. Now you might think, well, that's impossible, it's as impossible as the time machine. But the futurist was asked a question by the audience and said, how do you become one? And the fellow said, well, what you do is you listen really carefully to people who are predicting the future. And if they get it right, you pay more attention to those people. And if they get it wrong, you ignore them. Now, that seems to me to be an exceptionally intelligent way to go forward in listening to people. For the people who are worth listening to because they get it right, we'll listen to them a lot more. For the people who get it wrong, and some gossips get it wrong time and time again, why do people listen to them? Why not just ignore them? But I suspect one of the reasons why people get the distinction wrong of who to listen to is not because of that person they're listening to, it's because of us. I have this feeling that almost everyone grows up feeling that what they are isn't quite what they want it to be. And that when they think about themselves, they actually think about a wrong person. They're not getting it right. This next clip I'm going to show you is, I think, very beautiful. And it's about how you see yourself. Because I think if you want to know how you trick people, like the first clip, or why some people want to listen to gossips when it's absolute nonsense, I think the reason why some listen and some don't, and why some can be tricked and some can't, is simply because some people see themselves accurately and some people don't. This one raises that issue of how you see yourself, and I think it explains itself. It's quite beautiful.
I always thought people were so cute when they have the little cheeks and they're like rosy, but mine are pretty plain. If I was going to change one feature about my face, I would say that I would want fuller lips. I'm definitely a person that looks tired when I'm tired, and when people say that, immediately I'm like, oh man. I'm starting to already get little crow's feet and stuff, which like my mom has, so yeah.
I'm a forensic artist. I was trained at the FBI Academy in 1993 in composite art. Worked for the San Jose Police Department as the police artist from 1995 to 2011.
We didn't really know what we were doing, so that was nerve-wracking for everyone.
I showed up to a place I'd never been and walked into this big warehouse, and at the very end there was a guy with his back to me with a drafting board.
I had a curtain separating me so that I don't see. We'll begin. First of all, tell me about your hair.
Brown, long, I guess a little bit past my shoulders.
Your jaw.
My mom told me I had a big jaw. Yeah, the brown eyebrows, dark brown eyebrows. I didn't know what he was doing, but then I could tell after several questions that he was drawing me.
Tell me about your chin.
I guess I haven't really compared it to anyone else's chin, but especially when like I smile, I just feel like it kind of protrudes a little bit.
What would be your most prominent feature?
Kind of have a fat, rounder face.
The older I've gotten, the more freckles I've gotten.
You sort of realize, oh man, now I have to talk about myself and think about my looks.
I'm 40, so I'm starting to get a little bit of the crow's feet thing going on.
Once I get a sketch, I say thank you very much, and then they leave. I don't see them.
I still didn't know. All I had been told before the sketch was to get friendly with this other woman, Chloe.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about a person you met earlier, and I'm going to ask you some general questions about their face.
She was thin, so you could see her cheekbones. And her chin was a nice, thin chin.
The women were really critical about moles or scars or things like that, and yet they were describing just a normal, beautiful person.
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke and were very expressive.
The length of the nose, what is that like?
It's short.
Short.
Yeah, cute nose. Her face was fairly thin.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
Okay. So this is your self-described image, and then somebody else described you in light of this sketch.
I have this whole thing about having dark circles and crow's feet around my eyes, and that was not part of the sketch at all that The Stranger did. The Stranger's was a little more like gentle.
It's really different.